here we are again. M16 platform versus AK-47 platform. This subject has been done to death, but people seem to never tire of it, so we're going to beat the dead horse a little more. However, to really do a good comparison, an in-depth expose of these two rifles, we would be here all day, maybe even a couple of days. So today I want to focus on just one topic, power. Which of these is more powerful? Well, you measure power basically by velocity or energy foot-pounds, energy foot-pounds being the real bottom line. The thing is, I don't like to stand here and quote the numbers because ballistics charts don't always agree with each other, and there are so many variables, bullet weight, brand of ammunition, barrel length, that whatever results I can sit here and say, you might get something quite a bit different. But big picture-wise, 5.56 NATO, or if you use 223 ammo, will give you a velocity that's 5, 6, 7, sometimes 800 feet per second more than a 7.62 by 39 will. But on the other side of that, the 7.62 by 39 with its much heavier bullet can give you energy foot-pounds that's 1, 2, 300 pounds more. So there's a trade-off with both. The problem really with quoting the numbers on the page is that that's all they are, is numbers on a page, and sometimes that doesn't mean much. My favorite example is, mathematically on paper, a bumblebee is not aerodynamically sound. It can't fly. Except in reality, we all know they can. So the ballistics chart doesn't always give you the whole story. I'm not saying it's completely irrelevant, but it's not the whole story. So how am I today going to demonstrate which one of these is more powerful? Let's just shoot these at some various targets, side by side, head to head, and you can judge the results for yourself. As I said a moment ago, your ballistics can vary quite a bit because your ammunition can vary quite a bit. So in the interest of consistency, we're going to keep, unless otherwise specified, the same type of ammo throughout. Now, for our M16, we've got Federal XM193, and this is true 5.56 NATO ammunition. And it is a 55 grain jacketed spear point bullet. For our 7.62 by 39, this is something I figure is pretty typical. It's Wolf 7.62 by 39, and it is a 123 grain spear point jacketed bullet. So unless otherwise specified, this is what we're going to use on everything we do today. Okay, let's start with something pretty simple. You may have seen this before. This is our log cabin wall, and like I said before, I'm not going to build an entire log cabin just to shoot it. These are 6-inch peeler poles. Let me show you a close-up of what they look like. Okay, if you've seen our Old West guns versus Old West building materials video, you may have heard this speech before, so bear with me. These are 6-inch peeler poles, and on a real log cabin there'd be mud or some other kind of chinking in here, and we're not going to do that. We're just going to try to keep our shots on the thickest part of the log. Being logs, they're wrought with inconsistencies. Some of them have big cracks and there's knots in here, so we're going to try to spread out several shots and titrate out those results. And behind the wall we'll have our shoot and see target. So we're going to go back there 25 yards and we're going to shoot and see. Okay, let's start with our M16. Well, how'd we do? All 6 of them went through, and you can see that this shoot and see target is just peppered with secondary projectiles. That's all wood splinters coming out of that. You can also see that just about every bullet hole here is absolutely sideways, so these bullets are tumbling when they come through there. However, they all came through there. Now let's repeat that with our AK rifle. Well, how'd we do? 6 shots, all 6 through there. Notice none of these tumbled, and also notice virtually no secondary projectiles. It didn't chew up the wood nearly as bad. So does that make it more powerful or less powerful? I think it means that it would penetrate more in this type of medium, but 6-inch logs, both of them went through, and you'd have been in trouble if you were on the other side of it. Which one is better? You be the judge. Now, if you saw our Old West Guns versus Old West Building Materials video, you heard me say that when someone upgrades from muzzle loading to cartridge guns, you should upgrade from a log cabin to lumber. Well, it looks like when someone upgrades to an assault rifle, you should upgrade to cinder blocks, preferably several thicknesses of them. What we've got here is 10 cinder blocks arranged like bowling pins. We're going to go back 25 yards, we're going to shoot at them, and we're just going to count how many rounds it takes until we start perforating our soda bottles. We're going to start with our M16 platform, and I'm going to shoot from the prone so I can make sure that the bullets travel horizontally through the target medium. I may end up continuing to fire after I hit the soda jugs just because from this angle I may not be able to see it. Well, how'd we do? It took a lot of rounds to chew up these cinder blocks. By my count, it was the 31st shot that hit the first jog and the 41st shot to hit the second one. Now let's reset this up and repeat that with the AK. All right, now let's repeat that with the AK. Well, how'd we do? Well, the first thing I have to point out is that it never actually poked any holes in these soda bottles. They were knocked over by the cinder blocks falling down. But that having been said, the first one went down with the 19th round and the second one with the 26th round by my count. Significantly less rounds than it took the M16 to do it. And just by looking at the results on camera, it sure seemed like the 7.62 x 39 round chews up cinder blocks more so than a 5.56 will. Okay, now let's say we were going to go hunting with these rifles. You're going to shoot a jackrabbit, a coyote, a deer, what have you. Hydrostatic shock becomes a factor. So let's shoot a target that'll give us some feedback on hydrostatic shock. Now remember I said, unless otherwise specified, I'm otherwise specifying. We're going to switch to some soft point ammunition, which is something you might want to use in a hunting scenario. Now for our 7.62 x 39, we've got Silver Bear brand, and this is a 125 grain pointed soft point. And for our M16 platform, we're going to use 223 ammunition. Now this is Remington, 223 Remington, with a 55 grain pointed soft point. It's the same bullet weight as the 5.56 NATO ammunition, and it will deliver very similar ballistics. That's why sometimes you'll hear me say they're the same thing, because they deliver virtually identical ballistics, even though technically they're not the same thing. So let's take these out, shoot some water jugs, see how we do. Okay, let's start with our M16 platform. We got 4 1-gallon water jugs set up, and we're going to shoot them from 50 yards. Now let's repeat that using the soft point ammo out of the AK. Well, how'd we do? In the front row are the ones shot with the M16 platform, and the back row are the ones shot with the AK. Is there really a difference? Well, as you can see, both of them did pretty well. Did one really do more damage than the other? Well, the one shot with the M16, this one was blown almost in half. This one was blown completely in half, and you don't see that on the others. With some of them, you can see pretty similar results. From where I'm standing, it looked like the M16 variant did a little more damage, due primarily to it having tremendously more velocity and making more hydrostatic shock. But which one is really better, or was there enough difference to really declare a clear winner? You be the judge. In any test of power of these two rifles, you pretty much have to shoot a car, so here we are. The thing with shooting a car is that most of the time when you see this demo done, someone shoots from the side, and they'll shoot one rifle in one front door and out the other, and the other rifle through the rear doors. And then they measure the result by going around and seeing how many bullets went clear through. Fair enough, that tells you what it tells you. However, there's a few problems with doing it that way, primarily two. One of those is the extraneous variables of secondary targets inside the car. What I mean is that the bullet may hit stuff before it goes out the other side, usually the seats. The other problem is that the front and rear doors of most vehicles are not the same. There's different things in the front door than there is in the rear. There may be things present here that there aren't, and so it isn't necessarily a fair test. So we're going to try to account for some of those variables and see if we can get a pretty good result. Okay, so here's what we've done. We've propped open the front and rear doors, and they're held in place by these bungees. That accounts for the variable of secondary targets because now there's nothing but air between the front and rear door. It also accounts for the fairness of front versus rear doors because we're going to shoot a front and a rear door and then repeat that with the other rifle on the other side and hopefully have at least a more fair test. Now behind the rear door, what I've got is 3 thicknesses of 3/4 inch plywood, each 1.5 inches apart. And that'll give us at least some feedback on how much power the bullet has after it's gone through both doors. And then I've got this big piece of plastic here in case we break a window. Now we're going to shoot the door, we're going to try not to break a window, but we'll see what happens. All that having been said, there's another thing about shooting a car door that you got to be aware of. A car door is not a homogeneous medium. There's a lot of stuff in there, like I said before. Reinforcing bars that can vary greatly on size, shape, and location depending on what kind of car you have. Some cars have power windows, so you got a big electric motor in there. This has conventional crank windows. So we're going to try to account for that by shooting a high number of rounds, 15, and we're going to spread them out enough that we can hopefully titrate out some of those variables. So, all that yakking aside, let's shoot this and see how we do. Okay, let's start with our AR-15. Yes, I'm going to wear safety glasses, despite how silly they look. And yes, I do wear earplugs on every single shot. That question has come up quite a bit lately. Yes, I wear earplugs with every shot I take. So, without any further delay, let's shoot this thing. Well, we didn't break any windows, that's a plus. Now you saw the bullets go in the front door. Look at this rear door, how there's so many elongated bullet holes and they're spread out all over the place. You see little bits and pieces, those are bullet fragments and sometimes secondary projectiles. So your M16 bullets will tumble a lot after going through anything halfway solid. And you still see a lot of impacts in here, but all semblance of order and straight-on bullet holes kind of went to pieces on us. Let's check the plywood. Here's our plywood. Now 15 bullets went in the front door, 8 impact holes in our plywood, so roughly half. The interesting thing is though, when I looked on the other side, there are 7 exit holes on the third sheet. That means the bullets that did go through still had enough to go through 3 3/4 inch sheets of plywood. But the bottom line is 15 in, 7 out the back. Okay, now let's try our AK and see what kind of results we get with that. So how'd we do? Well, 15 shots in the front. This car door, just like the other one, all kinds of bullet holes, elongated bullet holes, secondary fragments. One of them deflected enough that it broke this window. There's even an impact hole right here. Now that's not where it missed, that's just where a piece deflected enough to break that out. Good thing we had our plastic sheet in the way. But the real thing is, let's take a look at our plywood. So how'd we do? Well, I count 9 impact holes there, and there's 6 out the back. That's not entirely fair because something deflected and went through that window, and at least one went into the body of the car. But the bottom line is, with the AR-15, we got 15 through the front door, 8 in this, 7 out the back of this barricade. With the AK, we got 15 through the front door, 9 in this, 6 out the back. Really, I don't think I could call a clear winner either way. You be the judge. Bottom line, though, is really 2 things. One, this has a lot more to do with the variables of car doors than it does which rifle or which round is better. And 2, one thing you can absolutely draw from this is that a car does not make really good cover if somebody's shooting at you with either of these rifles. Well, how'd we do? Well, the first thing I want to tell you is we're on the range today, so bear with gunfire in the background. Secondly, we shot 4 different things. We shot our log cabin, our cinder blocks, our water jugs, and our car. In shooting the log cabin, both rifles went through. The 7.62 by 39 definitely seemed to go through more decisively. The bullets didn't tumble. Seemed like that did better. But remember, both went through. Shooting the cinder blocks, although the 7.62 never got to the point where it perforated the soda bottle, unfortunately, they got knocked over by the collapsing cinder block. But still, to get to that point took 19 and 26 rounds, not 31 and 41. And that's a decisive difference. And just looking at the film, it sure seemed to be chewing up the cinder blocks a lot better than the M16 was. But when shooting the 1-gallon water jugs, the much greater velocity of the 5.56, or in this case 223, seemed to blow up the jugs more effectively. It seemed to have more hydrostatic shock. And that's pretty well consistent with the experience I've had hunting animals with these 2 rifles. And then shooting the car, there wasn't enough difference there to talk about, which is actually kind of surprising. So what does this all come down to? Well, there's a few things you can say absolutely for sure out of that. One is that no matter what conclusion I draw, somebody's going to want to debate it. The other is today's demonstration absolutely is not going to put an end to the argument over which one of these 2 rifles is more powerful. So the only thing I'd tell you is, you saw the results of anything, you judge for yourself. The other thing I'd say is, remember that the scope of today's demonstration was only one thing: power. Accuracy, user-friendliness, all that other kind of stuff, that's a debate for another time. So, all that having been said, don't try this at home. I'm what you call a professional. And thanks for watching the M16 versus AK-47, which one is more powerful video.